They say betrayal hits hardest when it comes from someone you trusted with everything. I didn't lose my idea to some corporate thief. I lost it to the guy I once called my best friend. We built dreams together in college dorm rooms, sketched out business plans on napkins, stayed up all night coding, side by side. I thought we were building our future, but he was secretly building his without me. He took my concept, my code, and even my pitch deck, and launched it behind my back. He thought I'd stay broke. He thought I'd disappear. Instead, I'd built something better. I raised millions. I outperformed him in every market, and the day I bought out his failing company, I didn't just take the business. I took back my future. Before I tell you exactly how I did it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you've ever been betrayed by someone close. Drop a comment below. Who hurt you the most when you were just trying to build something real? You're not alone, and trust me, sometimes revenge looks like a perfectly signed acquisition contract. My name is Victor. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my early 20s, I thought I knew what loyalty looked like. His name was Josh. We met during our second year of college in one of those startup incubator workshops that promised to turn students into the next big tech CEOs. Josh had confidence, charisma, and a mind for marketing. I had the technical chops. We clicked instantly, stayed up late building prototypes, pitching half-baked ideas to professors and angel investors, and dreaming about the day we'd change the world. There was the kind of friendship that felt unbreakable. The kind where you start to believe that the only thing standing between you and success is time. The idea came to me during finals week. I was running on no sleep, too much caffeine, and a flash of inspiration. It was a simple concept, a location-based app that would connect freelancers to instant gigs in their area. Everything from dog walking to logo design. Fast, local, reliable. I jotted it down in my notebook, sketched the wireframes, and showed it to Josh the next morning over cold coffee and a laptop screen full of code. His eyes lit up. "Victor," he said, "this could be it." We spent the rest of the semester working on it together. He handled outreach, built a small email list, talked to a few early-stage mentors. I built the code base, tested features, and refined the back end. I even registered a domain name. We made a handshake deal, 50-50. Nothing legal, nothing notarized, just two broke college kids with a dream and a Dropbox folder. But then summer hit, and we both went home. I picked up freelance work to pay rent and kept refining the app during late nights. Josh got an internship at a major tech firm in another city. We promised to keep in touch, to keep building, to launch it after graduation. But Josh started going dark, delayed replies, missed calls. He stopped logging into our shared repo. I assumed he was just busy or burned out. I didn't want to push him. A year later, I saw a headline on LinkedIn that made my heart drop. New gig app disrupts local freelance market, founded by tech grad Josh Carter. My stomach flipped. I clicked the link. There it was. The same concept, the same categories, even the same tagline I had written in my notebook. The screenshots were polished, the branding was slick, but the skeleton was mine. Our shared idea, repackaged, rebranded, and launched without a single word to me. He hadn't just taken inspiration, he'd stolen the entire playbook. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. Rage, disbelief, grief, it all hit me at once. I wanted to call him. I wanted to scream. But most of all, I felt humiliated. How could I have been so naive? How could I have trusted someone with my dream and expected them to honor it, without paperwork, without protection? I shut my laptop and went for a long walk that night, the kind where your thoughts echo louder than your footsteps. That's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to fight him with lawsuits. I wasn't going to beg for credit. I was going to build something better. Bigger, smarter, and one day, when he least expected it, I was going to own every piece of what he thought he'd stolen. That's when the real story began. After the shock wore off, I went quiet, not in defeat, but in strategy. I deleted Josh's app from my phone, blocked him on socials. I didn't want to see him post success quotes from Stolen Glory or pretend he was some self-made visionary. Instead, I locked in. I reopened my original code base, dusted off the old designs, and started from scratch, not to chase him, but to outpace him. I renamed the app, rebuilt the back end, and poured every lesson I'd learned from freelancing into making it something more robust, more scalable, and more honest than the one he launched. I knew what Josh didn't, the pain points of real freelancers. He was too focused on polish, on optics. I was focused on utility. I built features he hadn't thought of. Instant payout integrations, AI-based job matching, real-time conflict resolution. I worked alone for 6 months. Nights, weekends, lunch breaks, no funding, no hype. Just me, a laptop, and a fire in my chest that burned every time I remembered the look on his smug face in that article. Eventually, I reached a tipping point. The app was stable, the UI was clean, but I needed traction. I pitched angel investors, this time with documentation, NDAs, and working prototypes. I started small, local freelancers, beta testers. They loved it. Within 3 months, I had 5,000 users, then 20,000, word spread. Investors noticed. I closed a $1,300,000 0-cent seed round in early spring, and that's when things really took off. Hired a lean team, brought in real designers, marketers, support staff. We rebranded again and launched with a campaign that went viral in the freelance community. Josh didn't notice me right away. Why would he? He thought he had won. But I saw his user base plateauing. Reviews were slipping, people were complaining about bugs, late payments, bad matches. Meanwhile, we were gaining users daily. What he had taken from me wasn't enough to carry him, because he hadn't built it from conviction. He built it from theft, and it was starting to show. I ran into him at a tech conference. I wasn't even sure he recognized me at first. He looked tired, like a man fighting to stay relevant. He gave me a nod across the room, then turned away. No words, no apology, just distance. But that was fine by me, because what he didn't know was that I had already spoken to his investors. They weren't happy. His numbers were down, and his burn rate was up. I didn't gloat. I didn't even need revenge at that point. I had what mattered: my integrity, my momentum, and a team that believed in what we were building. But life has a way of circling back. A few months later, I got a call from one of Josh's angel investors. His company was tanking. They were looking to sell, quietly, and they'd heard about me, heard I was the original mind behind the concept, and most importantly, they believed I could salvage the brand if I was interested in acquiring it. I didn't answer right away. I walked around my apartment for hours. I thought about the betrayal, the sleepless nights, the humiliation of seeing someone else pretend to be the mind behind my idea. And then I thought about something else, something colder. What if I bought it just to shut it down? I walked into that meeting room like I'd been there 1,000 times before. But inside, I was still the kid who had once sketched wireframes on napkins and shared his dreams with someone he thought was a brother. The investors greeted me politely, their faces neutral but curious. I could tell they weren't just trying to salvage a sinking ship. They were trying to save themselves from a bad bet. Josh wasn't in the room yet. They gave me the full download. User retention was plummeting. Freelancers were abandoning the platform, and revenue had flatlined. The app had name recognition, but no trust, no growth, and no future. Unless someone came in with both vision and execution. That someone was me. And we all knew it. They offered me the company for a fraction of what they'd invested, just enough to recover some pride and cut their losses. I pretended to deliberate, asked for a few days, but I already knew my answer. I wanted it, not just for the business, for closure, for control, for peace. The day the paperwork was signed, I felt strangely calm. I now owned the very company my best friend had built on Betrayal. I sat alone in my office, stared at the logo on the screen, and didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. It was never about revenge. It was about taking back what was mine. The next step, though, wasn't easy. I had a decision to make. salvage the brand or burn it to the ground. My team voted to let it die. Let your work speak for itself, they said. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I wanted Josh to know exactly what it felt like to be erased. So I scheduled one final meeting with him. He walked into the office conference room like a man walking into a trap but pretending he wasn't afraid. When he saw me at the head of the table, he froze. His face dropped. I could almost see the math happening in his head. He looked around, confused. "What the hell is this?" he asked. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just slid the papers across the table. "This is me owning your company," I said quietly. "The one you built from something you stole." He stammered, tried to act tough. "You can't just—" "I can," I cut in, and I did. The sale is final. I gave him 5 minutes to gather his things. No farewell email, no last speech to the team, just silence. The same silence he left me with when he took my idea and ran. I watched him walk out, shoulders slumped, a man undone, not by malice, but by his own shortcuts. After he left, I called an all-hands meeting. I told the remaining staff that the brand would be retired, the platform redirected to our new ecosystem, and that they were free to apply for roles on my team if they believed in building things the right way. Some stayed, some left. But the message was clear. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. Josh's app was offline by the end of the week. Our user base doubled by the end of the month. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. Not because I'd won, but because I'd never stooped to his level to get there. A few weeks after Josh walked out of the office, I found myself standing outside the old cafe where we used to spend hours dreaming about changing the world. It hadn't changed much. Same cracked tiles, same clinking espresso cups behind the counter. I stepped inside, took the same corner booth we once claimed as ours, and stared at the empty seat across from me. For the first time in years, I let myself feel everything I'd been trying to outrun. Betrayal, grief, disappointment, and something more surprising. Relief. Josh was gone, not just from the company, but from my head. My phone buzzed. It was an email from a journalist. She was writing a piece on tech founders and startup ethics and wanted to feature my story. I almost deleted it. I didn't do any of this for recognition. But then I thought, maybe someone out there needed to hear it. Not the story of a man who got revenge, but the story of someone who turned pain into progress without losing his soul. When the article dropped, it went viral. Not because I said anything scandalous, but because people recognized the quiet truth in it, that betrayal doesn't have to break you, and that sometimes the best comeback is building something better, stronger, and yours. I received hundreds of messages, some from struggling entrepreneurs, others from people who had their ideas stolen, their trust shattered, their loyalty abused. They didn't want pity, they wanted to know how to rise. And I told them what I knew: protect your vision, trust your gut, and never let someone else's shortcuts define your journey. One day, I got a message that stopped me cold. It was from Josh's younger brother, Ben. We hadn't spoken in years. His message was short. "I just wanted you to know, he regrets it. All of it." I didn't reply. There was nothing more to say. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't something I needed to hand out like a receipt. It was something I could carry quietly for myself. I didn't need Josh to suffer. I didn't need to see him fail. I just needed to know that I had stayed true to who I was, even when it would have been easier to become the villain in my own story. The company I built from scratch eventually merged with a global tech firm. The offer was generous. Life-changing, really. I took it. But I didn't stop working. I couldn't. There were still ideas inside me, still things I wanted to create and people I wanted to uplift. My team grew. We mentored new founders, funded dreamers who didn't come from privilege, and prioritized ethics as much as innovation. We didn't move fast and break things. We moved intentionally and built things that lasted. I never told most people how close I came to giving up, to believing the lie that maybe I wasn't cut out for this, that maybe the world only rewarded thieves and smooth talkers. But that voice, the one that whispered I was foolish for being honest, loyal, transparent, it got quieter every day. Because the truth is, you can win without becoming like the ones who hurt you. You just have to be willing to play the long game. As I sat in that cafe booth years later, sipping coffee with the same flavor of hope I once carried in my 20s, I realized something important. I didn't just take back what Josh stole. I became the man he never had the patience or integrity to become. And that, in the end, was the real victory. Years passed, and with them, so did the sting of betrayal. What once felt like a gaping wound slowly turned into a scar, something I could touch, remember, but no longer hurt from. Life had changed. The startup that began in my tiny apartment now operated in multiple countries. I was invited to speak on stages, mentor at accelerators, even sit on advisory boards for new tech companies. But none of that ever meant as much as the quiet moments. Like the time a young developer I'd hired told me with tears in her eyes that it was the first time she felt seen and respected at work. Or when a former intern, who once struggled to even speak up in meetings, pitched her own product and got funded on her own terms. These were the moments that made it all worth it. Not the acquisition, not the headlines, but the people whose lives were changed because I didn't give up when I had every reason to. Josh faded into the background of the industry. He tried to launch another venture, but the trust wasn't there anymore. People had heard the story, investors, clients, even peers. They didn't want to take the risk. Reputation, once lost, is hard to rebuild. But I didn't follow his journey with any sense of pleasure. I didn't root for his downfall. Because here's what I finally understood. Revenge wasn't about making someone else lose. It was about making peace with your own path and building something so solid, so undeniable, that no one could take it from you again. I changed my number a few years ago, cleared out old emails, moved into a quieter part of the city, away from the chaos. I still work, but on my terms. I teach now, too, a couple times a month at the local university. One of my students asked me recently, "What's the biggest thing you've learned?" And I said this, that success isn't loud. It's not always flashy. Sometimes it looks like going home with a clear conscience, like hiring people better than you and giving them the spotlight, like waking up and realizing you don't carry resentment anymore. He wrote that down like it was some kind of secret. But it's not. It's just what happens when you stop letting other people's greed write your story. I still visit that old cafe sometimes, not often, but when I do, I sit in the corner booth and remember where it all began. Not with money, not with power, but with an idea, a stolen dream, and a fire in my chest that said, "Build anyway." If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Your best revenge won't come from destruction. It'll come from elevation. From doing the work, quietly, honestly, and well, from becoming the kind of man your past doubted you could ever be. That's what I did. And in the end, it wasn't about proving Josh wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was always right to believe in who I was becoming. And in the end, I didn't just win, I reclaimed what was mine. Not with anger, but with strategy, silence, and success. If you've ever been underestimated, used, or betrayed, remember, you don't have to fight dirty to get even. You just have to outgrow them. If this story hit home, drop a comment below and share your own experience, even if it still hurts. Someone out there might need to hear it. Subscribe for more real revenge stories like this, and don't forget to hit that like button if you believe karma always finds a way. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is becoming everything they said you never could.